In this training module, you'll be learning about vehicles called control cars or cab cars. In the UK, they're often called driving van trailer or DVT cars, and you will likely come across other names for them too. The name cab car will be used for the rest of this module to keep it simple. Cab cars are essentially a passenger coach with a driving cab in them, but most importantly, they have no means of propulsion themselves. There are no engines or motors, so they can't move under their own power. The way that a cab car works is it will remotely control a locomotive at the other end of the train, and this is where it's important to understand their behavior as being a little different to the cab experience of the locomotive itself. There may be a little lag in control response, and you may not quite have the same instrument outputs as you do in the locomotive itself. For this module, you'll be taking this German Doppelstock cab car, which has a BR146.2 locomotive at the other end, setting it up and then driving it forwards to a marker at the other end of the yard area. Revisit this module a couple of times to try different things out and get familiar with the subtle difference when driving from the cab car. One of the biggest and most obvious differences when driving from the cab car is that there's a lot less sound. Since all the motors and fans are at the other end of the train, it can be a little disconcerting at first. Engage the brake system by turning this key. Put the reverser in forwards. Turn on the headlights and set the signal light switch to headlights. Most German trains have these two controls to enable headlights. Ensure the doors are closed. Release the brakes and apply some power to get moving. It feels a little odd at first. All the audio cues you're used to in the cab aren't present here, so you just need to give the locomotive time to react to your commands. Experiment with some power and some brakes and see how the train reacts. You may find some sharp jolts happening because of how the slack is being bunched up or stretched out by the loco at the back. You can minimize this by making your first power or brake applications lighter and then increasing them. You'll get used to this with practice and experience. Cut the power and coast the rest of the way. This is far enough. Bring the train to a stop now by applying the train brake. This is just a brief introduction to cab cars. The changing ends for cab cars training module goes into more depth about both the cab car and the BR146.2 locomotive on the other end of the train. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you'll practice going between the BR146.2 locomotive at one end of the train and the cab car at the other. All the junctions are being taken care of for you by another team member, allowing you to focus on driving. You're starting here in a siding near the main loop. Get started by climbing in. Insert the reverser handle and set the reverser to forward.
Störung. Störung.
Set the headlights to bright, and on the back wall set the signal lights to headlights. Release the brakes and apply power to get moving towards the marker. It's time to get the locomotive cab shut down. Move the train brake handle to the full service position.
Störung.
Set the reverser to off and remove the reverser handle. That will deactivate the cab. On the back wall, change the signal lights to tail lights so that the locomotive shows red lights now that it's at the rear of the train. With the cab shut down, you can move to the other end of the train. Exit the cab and walk along the side of the train to the cab car. Don't forget to close the door before you leave. Open a passenger door on the cab car to get in and make your way to the cab and sit in the driver's seat. You now need to get this cab set up. Start by turning the brake key to activate the brakes. Insert the reverser handle and set the reverser to forward. Set the headlights to high beams and on the back wall set the signal lights to headlights. Check if there are any doors open, and if so, close them. You're good to go. Release the brakes, apply the power, and take the train out. You're headed out onto the main line and will be stopping at the main station on the loop. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you're going to learn how the German AFB cruise control system works. Many German trains use this type of cruise control, and much of the fundamentals you learn here will apply to other trains that have some equivalent form of cruise control. It's important to note that there are fundamentally two types of cruise control. One is an active system like AFB, which will manage your speed positively using throttle and brake as needed. The other is a speed set system, which is useful for setting a maximum speed. Speed set could usually maintain your speed, but can't reduce it as easily as a system like AFB. For this exercise, you'll be doing 2 laps of the main loop here at the training center. The first time around, you'll be learning how to set up AFB and use it from standstill. The second time, you'll learn how to enable AFB while your train is already running. Set up the train, but don't start moving yet.
Störung. Störung.
Turn the AFB system on.
AFB. AFB.
You can now
AFB.
set the target cruise speed using the AFB lever. Set it to 40 kilometers per hour for now. Release the brakes and apply power. As the train accelerates, you can apply more power as needed. Increase the AFB lever to 80 kilometers per hour and watch the train accelerate to the new target. Back to 40 kilometers per hour. You're coming back to the platform, so set the throttle to off and stops at the station. Getting AFB running while stationary is quite straightforward, but sometimes you may want to activate it while you're on the move without having to stop. Set the AFB lever to off and turn the AFB switch to off so that we can try that exercise next.
AFB, AFB, AFB.
Now you're doing about 40 kilometers per hour, it's time to get the AFB system enabled. First, completely cut the power handle to off. Next, set the AFB to the maximum position. Don't worry, it can't do anything because the power handle is set to off. Now activate the AFB switch to turn AFB on.
AFB, AFB,
Move the AFB lever to
AFB.
80 kilometers per hour so it can speed up. Finally, apply some power. Notice that with accelerating, if all has gone well, you'll see the power cut out around 80 kilometers per hour mark as AFB is managing your speed. Pretend there's a signal restriction coming up ahead and you don't have the brakes. Use the brake lever to bring the train down to around 40 kilometers per hour and release the brakes.
Störung,
Notice how even though the cruise control is set to 80 kilometers per hour still, the power is applied, it's still not accelerating. This is because the brake application caused a throttle lockout. To reset it, you need to put the power back to off and then reapply it. Perfect. You're accelerating back up to 80 kilometers per hour. It is important to remember that a cruise control system like this is no substitute for the driver paying attention and remaining responsible for the train. Cruise control systems also cannot be relied upon to slow the train at an appropriate rate when approaching red signals or speed reductions, so you should be ready to use your brakes as needed. That concludes this module. If you wish to replay it, you can come back to it at any time via the training center. In this training module, you'll be learning the basics of operating a steam locomotive. You'll be driving this Stania Class 8F steam locomotive. When you're ready, climb onto the footplate. Sit in the driver's position. Start by preparing the locomotive for departure. The reverser determines the direction of travel and how much steam is consumed as the locomotive moves. This locomotive has a combination brake that controls both steam and vacuum brakes. Steam brakes will apply on just the locomotive. Vacuum brakes will apply to the rest of the train so long as it is equipped with vacuum brakes. The brakes are released when a vacuum is created. The driver can use the brake handle to destroy the vacuum, which will start to apply the brakes. To create a vacuum, you should use the ejectors. The small ejectors should be left open when the train is running. The large ejector can be used to more quickly increase the vacuum after coupling or heavy braking. When the locomotive has been left standing, you'll want to open the cylinder cocks or remove any water in the cylinder. Move the combination brake to the release position and then use the large ejector as needed to get the brakes released. On an uphill start, you may want to apply a little. The regulator acts like the throttle control for steam locomotives. It controls. After a few wheel rotations, the cylinder should have been blown clear by the steam jetting out. Starting to pick up speed. Move the reverser towards forwards 25%. This reduces the amount of steam let into the cylinders and saves energy. To drive a steam locomotive, you'll mostly be managing the regulator and the reverser. The regulator puts steam into the cylinders. The reverser uses that steam to power the pistons and manage the power you get from the locomotive. As you accelerate, you'll want to gradually pull the reverser back towards the middle, usually no less than 15%, in order to make the most efficient use of steam and get the most out of the locomotive. Practice and experience will show you how much to adjust the various controls by. The way you manage the controls will vary depending on the type of steam locomotive and the weight of the train behind it, but the fundamental process of what each control does is the same. Use the combination brake to apply some braking force and bring the train to a stop.